Okay guys, so welcome, first of all. So we are Katori, and this is part of the Manchester Entrepreneur Social. My name's Dominic, and I just want to say big thanks to everybody who came early today out of your on your journeys. Welcome to the Northwest consciously aware, purpose-driven entrepreneurial tribe. I think you all deserve to give yourselves a round of applause for being here today, so have a little round of applause. So can we just have a quick show of hands? Who was here last month? Okay. Who has been before but wasn't here last month? And who's never been here before? Quite a lot of you. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So about last month, just want to quickly tell you a little bit about that. So the people who were able to make it, was it fun? Yeah, it was an amazing social. And for those who couldn't make it, we kind of asked the community what everybody wanted. And they said that they wanted to get to know more people in the room. So we held space for people to do that, and we came up with creative and innovative ways to allow people to make connections in the room. Some people found new business partners, some people found new great friends, and it was a really creative and amazing social. But the next one that we will do, which will be similar to that, is going to be in July. So on July the 12th, we're going to have another community connections. So get that blocked and booked if you are looking yourself for some new business partners or just to meet some new amazing conscious people. So Katori, what is Katori? So Katori has evolved out of Manchester Entrepreneurs for Good, which is owned by Daniel and Christina. And they have a burning passion and desire to inspire new conscious leaders, build better communities and greater businesses that serve the greater good. And these socials are a part of the global movement, which is run by Roger Hamilton. He created Wealth Dynamics. It's in over 7 continents, over 60 cities. And in the UK, there's one in London, one in Manchester, and one in Glasgow. But we do have a lot to get through tonight, so I'm going to hand you over to the joint hosts for the evening. This is their first time hosting together, so it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be an amazing event, and thank you all for coming, guys. Daniel and Christina.
Thanks very much, Dominic, for that. So I just want to check first, though, we changed a lot of AV stuff today, hence the slight delay in starting. I just want to check, can everyone hear me? Although you're not going to know if you can't. I always find that really interesting when people ask that. But I'm getting nods at the back, so that means you can hear things. That's brilliant. So as Dominic said, like, these socials were started by Roger James Hamilton. He's one of our mentors for the past 3 years, and the first person that I met that showed me that you can merge consciousness, spirituality, purpose and business all into the same box, the same business, I suppose. And it's from that concept that made me merge different aspects of my life and allowed me to be more truthful in what I'm doing in business, allowed me to see business in a new capacity that I hadn't seen before. And it's from that perspective that these socials are born. And we make a really big point of our socials in Manchester of flying a flag to say that if you're in business or wanting to be in business and you, let's say, less than happy with the existing paradigm of business from how you might see it, greed, profiting, anything like that, where the main focus is on that, then we wanted to create a space where everyone in the community that comes in, or everyone that's part of the tribe, everyone that comes to the events, shares a similar theme, golden thread that runs through everything, which is building business on purpose. And that's what we aim to do every single day with everyone that we meet in everything that we do. He introduced me, or further introduced me, to a gentleman called Buckminster Fuller, who has a particular, lots of quotes, but one of them was, how do we make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time with spontaneous cooperation across the whole planet without ecological damage to anybody. And it's that message and that vision that Buckminster Fuller had 70, 80 years ago that really we want to kind of bring forth and represent within Manchester. One of the ways we do that primarily within our socials here is through a platform called B1G1. Do you want to just explain a little about B1G1?
Yeah, of course. Hi everybody. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so B1G1 stands for Buy One Give One for those of you who aren't familiar with that platform, and it's something that we weave into our business and also something that we do for this event. So everything that happens within this event is an event for good. So we don't make any profits off this event. It's purely it's purely about making a difference somewhere else in the world. I don't actually have the statistics, but we will be sending out an email just to kind of give gratitude to all of you for the contributions, because the money that you pay today to get in and come and learn from these beautiful people and to connect with one another goes to creating impact in the world. And that was created by Paul Dunn and Masami Sato. It's only been going for about 4 or 5 years and is a really incredible platform. So if you're interested to learn out more about B1G1, then by all means come and speak to us. We can have a chat with you and see how you could potentially wave it into your business too.
Awesome. The facts from last month were actually, from the takings that we got on the door, we impacted 11,000 lives from the event last month. The way we measure an impact is we take something that might be large, so someone might create a well for £1 million for 1 million people, let's just say. Then that well, for every pound contributed, impacts one life. And a lot of the projects you see around the world are that big that we don't always quantify them in a way that can mean something to someone. So we take all of the impacts down to one thing. So we might give a child food for 1 month. And it might sound like such a small thing, but it's the easiest way sometimes for people to really start to see how much your contributions really make a difference. So from last month, we focused on nutrition, water, sanitation, and education.
Yeah.
And most of you in the room probably will be on our email list, and there's a full breakdown that we put through on there just to kind of show you what's possible from coming to one event in 1 month, 40 people, 11,000 lives. And it's a tiny little input we gave to have such a big output. And imagine if every single business every month just impacted 1,000 lives. And that's what we're trying to get across and what we're trying to do. Every month we find speakers from around the UK who represent and stand for everything that we've shared with you today. We used to find it really difficult, thinking that we were the anomalies in the crowd. And then as time moves forth, you just realise like a never-ending, expanding potential of options. People come up from all over the place. And it was Christina who introduced this meeting, particularly with Emma and Davyd, who I'll introduce in a moment. We were down in London at an event called Plant Consciousness. And we saw 2 people speaking at Plant Consciousness who fit every box that we could tick. They were successful, they were entrepreneurial, they were driven, they'd been international, and as we uncovered more and more and more, they had a history and a background that pretty corporate, let's say, until things change and things shift. And so it really is a privilege and an honour to be able to have here at our event to date 2 of the most on-point examples and stories of what you can do in business that we've had yet. And so I'm not going to share more about what they're going to do, what they've done, because that's what they're here to talk about fundamentally. So please give a round of applause for Emma and Davyd. Try the other one first. I'll get the other one first.
Just want to say thank you for inviting us. You guys are very inspiring to us as well, so thank you for all that you guys do. It's really great to be here in Manchester again. So thank you.
Super. So I'm going to ask a question, hand over to Christina, then check the audio again. But I think first to begin with, just because some people actually are well aware of you and have come here specifically to hear yourself speak. You may also wonder why we have more stage lighting than the Palace Theatre compared to normal. We've had more requests to have this filmed than any other event we've had, and so we got a really good friend of ours, Roop Segar, who's doing the other end. Put your hand up and give people a wave. There we go. And unfortunately, the more expensive camera you get, the more lighting you need, apparently. So that's why we have these extra lightings, and that's why we're super privileged to have you guys here. So just share with everyone, really, I suppose, where you're at now, because I think that will give greater context when we start going back. If that's okay, if we start at the present and then we'll jump straight to the back.
Sure, okay. Well, we've got quite a few roles and strings to our bow at the moment. We're currently running the wisdomhub.tv channel, which we've come here to speak to you about today. But we're also, we have a training course, we are healers as well, and we are the UK's first plant spirit healers, certified from Pam Montgomery's lineage from the US, and so we're trained shamanic practitioners. I don't like that word, there's not many words to use in the English language, so we just prefer healer or energy healers. And we also have a range of plant essences, so we produce our own vibrational medicine that is to help people with self-transformation and self-mastery. And what else?
That's quite a lot already.
That's quite a lot, yeah. So that's where we're at the moment.
So that's really interesting, because I know that when we spoke in preparation, there was a time when you weren't doing what you do, and you were doing much more corporate things. I think you were living in Dubai at one point. So maybe you could kind of recap where you were within your corporate essence, to give a bit of a bridge between then and now.
Okay, so hi everybody, I'm Davyd, nice to meet you all.
Hello, Davyd.
Is this work? Maybe I have to speak a bit louder.
Just keep speaking.
Hello, check. So, yes, thank you everybody for coming to listen to us this evening. Hopefully we've got something interesting to share. We've had quite an interesting journey the last 20 years. Myself and Emma have known each other since we were kids. We actually grew up in the same town down in Cornwall where my parents are from, where Emma's parents moved to. And we've been together about 23 years now. So our business life, our spiritual life has been kind of interwoven, and it's been an important part of our journey. So I'd like to bring that in at the beginning because it's an important part of who we are and how we've managed to do all of this. But yeah, our kind of background really started in corporate world. Many of you will know us, if you know us at all, from our plant consciousness events or our shamanic lands event or gateways of the mind, which we also used to run. But we were only able to do those things because we actually came out of corporate event organisation. And so much as we're now in the spiritual space, a lot of the things that we learnt from the corporate world have actually really stood us in a lot of good stead. How to run budget sheets, how to keep to timelines, all of the really important things that make events run smoothly. However, we learnt those from a corporate perspective because that's the world we worked in. But as we progressed on our own inner journey and moved into running more spiritual events, we started to employ more kind of spiritual shamanic principles to our events, and we found that some corporate things needed to be let go of, but actually some of the basic principles were still fundamental to holding space. And that's one of the things we realised, that as event organisers we're always holding space for lots of people, and there's an ability to do that, and to do it well requires you to look at all the details. And so we came out of a corporate space. My background is actually in exhibition management. I was an exhibition director in business-to-business conferences and exhibitions, first in London and then for 9 years in Dubai. And that's really, that's my background, and Emma's is a little bit different but slightly similar, right?
Yeah, my background is still in events, but more on the consumer side. So I was events and marketing managers for, I worked for the uncle of the ruler of Dubai, Sheikh Mana, and I worked on, he has a big complex of, it's a big kind of, it's got a shopping mall, restaurant, spa and stuff, and anyway, we rebranded it. I was part of a team that rebranded it and brought it up into the modern era, because we actually moved to Dubai before we even knew it existed. Nobody knew about Dubai. We had to get out a map and have a look to see where it was. So it was really tiny when we first moved there. And then I went on to kind of work for other brands such as Hamley's Toy Store and Oscar de la Renta and jewelers, and as marketing. So between us, we had the skills to run our own events, because I was on the design, the marketing, the PR side of things, and then David was very much on the kind of budgeting, sales, business development, logistics side of stuff. So between us, we had the skills to once we'd got burnt out in Dubai, to actually transfer those skills into something we actually wanted to do, and that was not live in a desert, and we needed nature, and do things that we just want, from our heart, that we wanted to go to events we actually wanted to go to.
Is there not much nature in the desert?
No.
So you've got directors of events working for the uncle of the ruler of Dubai, who owns a lot of things in Dubai. Just to give some context, because events, like anything, range in scale and size, and even running small events of any size causes stress, disruption, things like that. What sort of size of these exhibitions were you in charge of and responsible for, either independently or jointly, if the ones at the end you did together? Because you say you were burnt out. Is this a long time process, or was that last event a bit of a kicker?
So yeah, you asked a few questions there. So for me personally, I started off working as a sales exec on a magazine, then I progressed to a different company where I was a sponsorship manager. That was actually in London, working for a conference company where we used to do essentially hotel shows. So more sponsorship driven, number of clients would normally be about maybe 30, 40 with booths and sponsorship, then with a conference, several hundred people, and that's how I started out. By the time I went to set up my own business in Dubai, I was running exhibitions that had like 300, 400 exhibitors, sponsors, attendances of like 5,000, 6,000 people, conferences with 300, 400 people, having to take Sheikh Mohammed around my exhibition, personally introducing him to people. So that was the kind of size that I was working at. But I had colleagues who were working on events that were even bigger than that, again, maybe 4 or 5 times the size, particularly one event, Cityscape, which was doing really well because Dubai was booming in the property market. But for me, that was more than enough. That kept me busy all year. So that basically did that for probably around about 10, 12 years working for other people before we set up our own business in Dubai.
Yeah, so then we decided that we couldn't work for other people anymore. It was just kind of a gradual retreat from that kind of, from the corporate world actually, from moving out of working for other people. And gradually across the course of the years we actually moved further and further out of the city till we were actually out in the desert in a house with a big wall around it. We really don't want to be here that much more, do we? We started our own company. David started the company first. He had a great idea for something, and then eventually I left my job and went to work with him to grow that, so that we could actually, so we had an exit plan to get out of Dubai, and we thought, we're not leaving this city with no money. We'll make sure we'll leave with some money so we can set us up to do something. And actually we just took some time off.
So was that the pivotal point then?
Was what the pivotal point?
Like at what point you make a decision that you don't want to work for someone else, and then you execute a plan, you did something to get enough money in to be safe, I suppose, and then you made a point to leave the country and learn. Is that the moment at which life really started to pivot?
No, not really. We were quite young when we moved to Dubai. We were only like 24. So by the time David set up his company, he was only like, how old, 29 or something? Yeah, 29. So we didn't know what else to do. We didn't want to come back to the UK for some reason, and so we didn't know where else to go. We didn't know what to do, actually. We were quite lost, in all honesty. And so we decided to eventually, Dubai just got too much for us. It's a really soulless place. We were depressed, we had drinking problems, we couldn't stand being around the people there, and so we eventually moved our office to India. And because we would go to India a lot just to kind of as the antidote to Dubai.
Yeah.
And we discovered that if we moved to Goa, it's only a 2-hour plane journey to Dubai, and we can just organise all our client meetings in 1 week and just fly back for them. So that's what we did. We moved to Goa. And nobody knew. We didn't tell anybody. And nobody realised that we'd left the country. It was great.
I think for me there was a couple of pivotal points. One was the realisation after working in the exhibition industry for a good number of years that it was very cutthroat. And actually the majority of people that worked in that industry weren't that nice. Everybody was in it for themselves, particularly the sales guys really wanted to make as much money as possible, which was okay, but sometimes that would perhaps cross a certain line and people would stab each other in the back. There was a lot of backbiting, and I actually found the environment I was working in Dubai to be quite hostile and didn't really suit me. And it was around that point that my exhibitions were doing really well, and kind of this is a bit of a thing for us, to the point when things to the outside world look like they're going really well, about to take off. That's normally when we walk away and go and do something else. And it was in that moment after my last exhibition for the company I was working for, gone really well. I'd just been promoted to being regional director for Asia for one of the world's biggest conference companies, and in that moment I decided I didn't want to work for those people anymore. And so I took a very nice paycheck from my last exhibition and set up my own business. Because I've been working in the transport industry and working a lot with Middle Eastern governments, I knew that there was a big car parking project. It's going to sound mad, but we ended up running an exhibition on car park management and car park management systems. And that's actually how we formulated our exit plan. It took 3 or 4 years for that exhibition to really come into its own, and it was done with market knowledge. So I utilised all of the experience and contacts I had from the exhibition I've been running for the other company. But then developed those contacts, created our own exhibition, which we ran for 3 years in Dubai, and that was our exit plan. And around that time, as Emma said, we realised that we were starting to suffer soul loss. Dubai is an incredible place in many ways, and we were fortunate enough to see the city grow and really boom. But as that happened, it also really substantially changed the nature of the city, even more so into a very sort of superficial place where we had lots of money, we had lots of holidays, we'd eat out a lot, we had 2 nice cars, a nice villa, but we were absolutely unhappy. And we started to realise that we were suffering from what we now call nature deficit disorder, NDD. And so that's why we ended up going to India a lot.
Yeah, wow, okay. So how long were you doing that commute between Goa and Dubai?
Only for a year.
Right, okay, only, no. Yeah, wow, okay. So you exited, and then did you move permanently to Goa? What was your move next?
No, we moved to Goa, set up a little office there, brought somebody over from Dubai who worked with us in Dubai, and just worked from this villa in Goa, and just ran the last event. Our big event actually was in Abu Dhabi, and so we just worked on that. It was only one a year, so we just worked from there and ran the event, and then decided actually we'd had enough. We were sat, actually the pivotal point for us that changed everything in our lives was when we were sat on our balcony in Goa, and we just said, right, we can't do this anymore. This is just not for us. It was like I was looking at my life just of depression and drink problems, like going into the distance, into my future, and I was like, this is just not what I came here for. This is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. Surely there's more to life. And so we just made the decision right there and then. That's it, we're changing, we're not going back, we're closing the business. Our parents thought we were bonkers. People still to this day ask, do you still regret turning your back on that business? Like, no, not at all, because once you make the decision, you can't regret it. Otherwise, why bother making the decision in the first place? So yeah, that decision, and since that we made that decision, our life has just, it's like it registers on a different level, and your life just gets catapulted in a different direction. And it's been a roller coaster, but it's been fun.
Yeah, because you took 9 years off, is that right?
No, 3.
Oh, 3, okay.
More like 2.5.
Okay, but you did some pretty incredible things. Like, I loved reading through the information that you sent us through, and you've done some pretty incredible things. So do you want to share some of the highlights of your time off when you were finding yourselves around the world?
Yeah, we did the cliche, go to India to find yourself.
Just before that, the 3 things that always stood up for me was like Himalayas, Indian masters, and Dalai Lama.
Dalai Lama. That was my personal favourite.
Just share with everyone like how like there's taking time off and then there's taking time off. So if you could just share a little bit more about that, would be brilliant.
So actually, I'm just going to wind back one step. There's a little piece of the story that Emma didn't include there, which was in between leaving Dubai and moving to India. We actually ended up going on what turned out to be a life-changing trip to Egypt. It was the first time we'd ever done anything like this, but it was a spiritual tour with quite a well-known author who was taking a guided group, and it was a 10-day trip through Egypt to all of the sacred sites, all of the temples, and it was a really magical trip. It was a big group. We'd never been involved, I'd certainly never been involved in anything like that before with so many spiritual people. And we came away from that experience having had some quite profound experiences at some of the temples. And then we moved immediately after that holiday to India, and we were actually, sometime later after we'd run the last exhibition, we were actually in the process of trying to sell the exhibition to another company. And at that point Emma was talking about where we sat on the balcony. We said to each other, look, regardless of whether this sale goes through or doesn't go through, are we done with this business? And we both looked at each other and said yes. And that was kind of an important moment. As it turned out, we didn't actually sell the business in the end because, for various reasons, we didn't really vibe with the people that wanted to buy it. I mean, we were just a very small company, and there were a lot of big exhibition companies circling around, and they thought that they could pick us off, and we were just like, you know what, man, we're just going to leave this business and walk away, and we're going to go and do something else with our lives. And in that moment, that was the decision that we made. And so we spent a little bit of time in India, somewhat foolishly trying to set up a spiritual tour business. We were so inspired by this experience in Egypt that we thought we could do the same thing in India based on our 9 years of going on holiday there. Probably one of the worst business decisions we've ever made. We quickly realised that we were way out of our depth, and that generally it was pretty difficult for foreigners to set up business and actually run them in India without encountering all kinds of problems.
Well, Goa, I don't know about the rest of it.
Yeah, Goa certainly was quite tricky. So we learned some lessons the hard way there. And that's actually, in the end, Goa got to be it's quite a dangerous place actually. When you live there day in, day out, and you see what happens outside of tourist season, and you're one of only a handful of foreigners still left during monsoon, you see a very, very different side of the story. We actually started to feel quite unsafe. People that were working for us was trying to hustle us for money, and it all got a little bit kind of tense in places. So we said, you know what, okay, we're done here too. And then we'd always wanted to go and spend time up in Dharamsala, where the Dalai Lama has
I
his
can't
residence.
leave India without going to see the Dalai Lama.
Why would you?
You know, it was just, I've always read his books, and I just thought I just got to go. So we just moved to we moved there.
Literally packed up our bags in the middle of the night and just disappeared and caught a flight up to Dharamsala, and that was that. And then we lived there for 6 months, and that's really where our kind of, I guess, our spiritual life started to take shape.
Yeah, we just did meditation retreats. We went and studied at the Dialectic Centre at the Dalai Lama's temple, and we just plunged ourselves into some wisdom teachings because we needed something. It was like we'd lost all faith in humanity. Actually, we were completely lost. We didn't know what to do with our lives after living in Dubai for so long, and so we decided, right, let's go and get some teachings from people who know about stuff, and the Dalai Lama knows about stuff. So we went and studied with him. We took teachings with him, and we actually met some master energy healers as well. So we started doing some courses and learning about energy and about how we can heal each other, and it just, we just carried on from there, really.
What's interesting about that is when people set up businesses and they go and do training, a whole host of labels comes in your head, from marketing to business ideas to websites to development and product training. And you could argue in a way that actually that's years of product training, really, because it formulated the basis of what you went forth and did more of and became.
Yeah, well, we then moved to Italy, because when we were in Dharamsala, we saw this advert, because we still weren't sure after, taking 6 months off, we still weren't sure what we were going to do. We were still trying to find ourselves. So we saw this advert in this retreat centre we were in, and it was like, why you can study a master's degree in Tibetan Buddhism in Tuscany.
For 2 years.
Okay. Let's move to Tuscany. So that's what we did. We just moved to Tuscany, moved to Tuscany.
You just love moving.
And spent 2 years studying a master's degree in the preservation of wisdom culture and the art of liberation.
Nice.
It's a convoluted title, but it actually gave us a good grounding in what's been lost in our culture, what is, where we lost ourselves in we're brought up to and we go to school to be trained how to be good robots in the system, and so you lose yourself in that. And so what all these meditation retreats and all this studying Buddhism is, that it helps you to understand the mind. And so that's what it helped me sort out my thought processes and really start to get in touch with myself again.
Which is ironic. How many years ago was that, roughly? 10, more, less?
About 8 or 9.
8 or 9 years ago?
So ironically, 8 or 9 years ago, if you all cast your minds back 8 or 9 years, like how much or how not much words like mind space and headspace and meditation and yoga and every other variation of those were, if they were said, they were definitely not said anything here business. And today, I'm pretty certain the app Calm, which is a bit like Headspace, if you've seen it, Headspace, it's an app that helps you find clarity, just got valued at the first $1 billion company on the planet that's in the meditation sector. That's how much it's changed. And so years ago, someone would be like, you're going to learn about your mind. And now it's in employee perk books, now it's in mental health, it's being various forms administered on NHS, but not quite there yet. We're going to go for a break in a minute, and I'm going to ask you a big-ish question and see if you can squeeze it into 2 minutes. And that is just to bring it forth a little bit. So all this happened, and then there's a moment when something changes, and you come home. And you come home and you give birth to, you start something new, which is the gateway stuff in London, I'm imagining. Can you just kind of share that moment of a switch and kind of what got started in the UK, and then we'll go for a break after that.
Okay, so very quickly in 2 minutes, there's 2 aspects to this. First of all was the idea for the Gateways of the Mind, which was the first event we ever ran in London, which was mostly about lucid dreaming and consciousness exploration. And that idea came to us on a flyover somewhere just north of Genoa on the way down to Tuscany when we were driving from Emma's mum's place. And that was actually something we initiated while we were studying in Italy. And then the move to come home happened towards the end of the second year of the course in Italy. And I have to give all due gratitude. It was Mother Ayahuasca that called us home. It was a ceremony in Britain around that time, which I sat in. And I just got a very, very clear message. I got 2 clear messages actually. One was, you need to come home now, brother. Your time abroad is over. And the second one was, we need you to run an event to bring people together so we can talk about the intelligence of plants, while I was having a conversation with a plant. And so I went, in fact that experience happened to me on my own, and I went back to Italy and told Emma, said, hey man, this is what's just happened, we need to move home. She's like, no way are we moving home, it's cold, it's wet.
Meditating in the hills, thank you very much.
But some months later she had this pretty similar experience and said, we need to come home. And that was it really, that was how we ended up moving back to Britain after nearly 15 years overseas.
15 years we'd been on this huge journey, and we moved to Wales. And it was the most amazing feeling, reconnecting back to your own land. It was like we had a rebirth. It was just so profound. We just walked the hills of Wales, and I cried so much because I'd forgotten what amazing country this is. I'd really forgotten, and I actually didn't want to come home for so long, and then I couldn't understand why. I love this country so much. This is the best place to live, honestly.
I wish more people shared that view, because I grew up hating the UK, and then I left the UK for Dominic there as well. Anyone else ever had that feeling of not liking England and the UK? Okay, half the room. Out of curiosity, who left for a long enough period of time, then came back and found a new love for it? Yeah, that's what happened to me. I came home reluctantly and then got home and went, oh my god, it's beautiful. And I had never even realised.
You're no longer the foreigner.
I know.
Which, is really important actually, to feel rooted in a place, to feel that, you can understand people on the street, and, you can kind of understand how the culture works, and you can be part of the culture. Whereas when in Italy, we only spoke Italian very basically, so you can't get into the culture that well. You can take part, but you're not part of it.
So then, coming back to the UK then, and the gateways of the mind, like, this is the culmination of all the knowledge that you've learned through all the businesses that you've run, and then you started these new events in London. Like, how successful were those?
It was a complete disaster. The event itself was great, but it lost a lot of money. We were way too enthusiastic about all this kind of wisdom we'd learned, and so we were all pumped up with we've got to tell everybody about this, like, lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences, and like, everybody should be learning this and knowing about it. And we thought more people would be interested in it than actually were.
We're still 10 years ago, though, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky at that time, actually, with the lucid dreaming, that there was a big upsurge in this kind of stuff, particularly in London, and there was a very strong dreaming community. There was a lot of out-of-body experience stuff going on as well, and we kind of hit that wave just at the right point. The mistake we made was that we overestimated on the numbers that we thought we could pull, not having had a database. We'd been out of the loop for a few years on the events, and we'd forgotten some of those basic things, and we overestimated. Took a lovely venue, the Royal Geographical Society, next to the Albert Hall, beautiful venue, but it nearly bankrupted us. And it was a venue that held like 800 people, and we got like 200, which on its own is not a bad effort at all, but the cost of the venue was super high, and we just didn't recuperate that. And it's the only event we've ever run that we've lost money on. And so that was kind of a little bit of a jolt to the system, and kind of definitely brought us back to earth.
Got to have those setbacks or sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we started a little bit later today, so I'm just going to let you guys know we're going to run on maybe about 5-10 minutes maximum afterwards. It's really important that we have enough time for questions and things, because there's so much learnings and lessons that Davyd and Emma have gone through in their experiences. What I will share on your tables, you will find, I think it's considered a 6, small piece of paper like this. This is called an opportunity knocks. For those that haven't been here before, we certainly never consider these networking events. However, we do consider them community events. In this room right now is somebody that you can help. In this room right now is somebody that can help you. It's fairly simple. What stops us is a mixture of shyness, a mixture of tiredness, a mixture of can't be botheredness, and a mixture of Britishness. And in between all of these things, we don't do anything. And we leave the event, we've heard some nice stuff, and we're done. So we create these. This is what Roger does at all of his events. It's got 2 questions at the top, which is your name and email. Then it says, the assistance I seek. That's where you put what you want. Underneath it says who I seek it from. For those that have done wealth dynamics profiling, you may put in there you're looking for a creator, a dynamo, a lord, a steel. It's the sort of personality profile of the person that would best serve whatever it is you're looking for. If you don't have a clue what that is, leave it blank, or come and speak to us and we'll share with you more about what wealth dynamics is. Underneath that is what I can offer in return, which is ultimately what you wish to give. We've seen many people in this room share and connect with many other people just as a result of these. Once you've done them, if you can pin them up at the back, you'll see a piece of string. There you go, it's being twanged. And we've got some pegs, so we just hang them up there. We'll be going around the room and collecting them as well. And at any point tonight, you can just go and have a look, take some photos of them. This is the moment where I say, writing on this piece of paper and putting it on that wall is hereby agreeing to all GDPR regulations. And if you do not want your data to be shared with others, do not write on a piece of paper, do not hang it on the wall. Does everyone say yes to that?
Yes.
Brilliant. I'm still not sure if that's actually legal, that I just did, but it's good enough, yeah? So for now, for our first play, please everyone give a round of applause to Emma and Davyd.